You are listening to episode 172 on the Happiness Happens podcast. This episode is with Barry Magliarditi. You are going to love this conversation with Barry. Before I tell you what the episode is about, I would love to introduce Barry to you just a little bit. Barry is a business coach, entrepreneur, investor, best-selling author, speaker, philanthropist, and spiritual guide. A maverick from the beginning, Barry started his first business, a kitchen and bathroom renovation company, when he was 18 years old. But Barry's experience of success did not match his expectations. Instead of the life of financial and personal freedom he dreamed of, he found himself working over 80 hours a week, feeling really stressed and burnt out, and watching his personal relationships crumble. His business wasn't his vehicle for freedom, it was his prison. After losing it all and hitting rock bottom, Barry knew in his heart that there had to be a better way to create the business and lifestyle he dreamed of. And this is exactly what we're talking about in today's episode. We're chatting about how Barry transformed his life after hitting rock bottom and how to live a life of balance that feels in tune with who you are as a person. There's so much incredible wisdom packed into this episode, and I'm so honored that Barry joined me for this conversation. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, share it on social media, and tag us so that we know that you're listening. Let's get into this conversation. Welcome to the podcast, Barry. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's going to be such a good conversation. You have quite an amazing story. I can't wait for my listeners to hear it. And we're going to dive into so many different things today. I would love, firstly, though, if you could tell us what happiness means to you.
Yeah, this is something interesting, and I know for many people, something that people chase, and for a lot of people, believe that materialistic things or that relationship, that house, that car, that career will make you happy. And I believe it's the ability for us to live without the need for anything or anyone. If we're able to wake up in the morning and be happy in our body, be happy in ourselves, be happy with the person we look with, everything else is a bonus as far as I'm concerned.
That is such a great answer. I've never had anyone share that before. And I love that perspective because it's true. A lot of the times we're looking for happiness in things that are outside of us. We're looking for happiness in, like you said, people, places, things, cars, money, this, houses. And really, what's at the core of all of that? There really isn't much substance at the end of the day, you know?
Yeah, I guess at a deep level, we're looking for some form of external validation,
Mm-hmm.
what we feel inside. But if we flip that, we started focusing on, well, how can I build and nurture that relationship with myself where I don't require that external validation? Sure, it's nice. We all enjoy that.
Of course.
But what if I didn't need it to feel happy and to survive and to live a great life?
I agree with you completely. It's so true. Now, I want to hear a little bit about your story because you have a lot of things I feel like you've gone through and experienced and seen. And, when we were chatting beforehand, and when I was chatting with your team beforehand, they were explaining, a little bit about your background, that you come from, maybe someone who was a little bit more depressed before and with drug abuse and that kind of thing. And so I would just love to hear what that journey was like for you and kind of what that pivotal moment was where you just wanted something different.
I guess I'll kind of do the best I can to condense. But I guess, growing up, I had a pretty good childhood, or so I thought. Like, I was lucky that my mum and dad were together. They could afford to put me to school and buy clothes and everything else like that. But it wasn't probably until my later, I guess, in early teens, that I started to realize that there was a lot of things inside of me unprocessed, a lot of emotions, a lot of trauma, a lot of challenges. And for me, I don't know, like, I growing up, I always felt like I didn't fit anywhere. I always felt like the outsider, and I don't really even know where that began. But I got introduced to marijuana when I was around 16 years old by somebody who I was working with at the time. I was doing an apprenticeship, and for me, it was this immediate relief where I felt like I belonged. I felt I could be present. I felt that prior to that, I was on such a different level to everybody else, not from an egotistical perspective, but I just found it very difficult to be present and connect, because knowing what I know now, looking back, I was riddled with trauma and challenge, that I just was constantly stuck in this space of fight or flight. And, weed helped me to kind of be present and helped me to connect. But more than anything, it helped me to suppress further what I was not willing to work with or deal with, or even knew that I had inside of me. And so I guess that started me on a journey of somewhat of personal development. But, really it was where I started getting into spirituality and meditation, and sort of found myself doing Reiki courses and things like
Hmm.
that, not quite knowing how I got there or particularly what led me there, but knowing that something led me there. There was some sort of inner guidance, God, connection
Hmm.
to divinity that led me into this practice of spirituality. And I guess what happened in that process is that I started to become present enough, but at the same time too, there was almost a disassociation of my connection with myself, because I was, I guess praying or channeling this energy from outside of me, that it gave me a chance to relax. It gave me a
Hmm.
chance to sort of be, so I said, I grew up with a pretty good family. My mum and dad are still together. They loved us very much. I went into an apprenticeship the moment that I left high school, and worked as a carpenter. And that only lasted a few years. I completed that, and then I found myself at 18 years old in my own kitchen and bathroom renovation company, having no idea what I was doing. I didn't have a background as a business owner. My parents weren't entrepreneurs, but basically I was there because my prior boss had verbally abused me one too many times, and I knew that I
Hmm.
needed to get out and to do something different. And it was a few weeks after quitting that I spoke with my mum, and I was like, I'm worried that I'm not worried. Like I was an avid worrier, and I just was completely, totally relaxed. I had a mortgage at that time at 18 years old. I had no savings. And she said, Barry, you'll work it out. You always land on your feet. And it was a few days later, I put an ad in the local newspaper advertising handyman services. And that ad grew into a multi-million-dollar kitchen and bathroom renovation company over around 5.5 years.
Wow.
And it wasn't a business though, it was a prison sentence. I didn't know the first thing about business. And so I built this organization that relied upon me being there every moment of every day, and 12, 13, 14 hours a day, to keep things operating, because I didn't understand the systems and processes and team and leadership. I didn't know any of that stuff. I was just
Yeah.
out, again, trying to belong, trying to fit in, trying to make sure that all my customers were super happy with the work we provided.
It is such a good point. And I think that, a lot of the times when people get into business, I feel like they are, thinking like, okay, there's gonna be so much freedom here, and there's gonna be so much, time, money, freedom, like whatever type of freedom you're looking for. And then you get into it and you're like, oh my goodness, this is a lot bigger commitment than, potentially working for someone else. And you were so young, like 18 is such a young age to start a company.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's young. I'm sure you learned a lot in that though.
Yeah, it certainly wasn't planned. That's the thing, like you said, so many people think, oh, I'm going to start my own business and make $1 million in the first year. And if you sat someone down and took them through the journey of what it actually takes to make your first $1 million in a year, they probably wouldn't go ahead. They
Yeah.
probably wouldn't invest that amount of time to achieve that outcome. But yeah, certainly learn a lot. I guess growing up, that was me. I always bit off more than I could chew, and tried to find the parachute on the way down, so to speak. And
Mm.
business was certainly the same. But looking back now, I'm 36 years old. I've been in business for basically half my life. It's taught me a hell of a lot. And, those experiences, along with everything that I've experienced through life, have brought me to feel such a sense of gratitude,
Mhm.
for it being through. And I guess that's the thing that I notice most about my healing journey in people that I work with, is that, if we can move to a space where we can look at any situation in life and experience a sense of gratitude, a sense of appreciation, and notice the lessons that it taught us, that's how we're able to wake up happy in the morning. That's how we're able to look in the mirror and be like, you know what, I'm a good man. Like I'm a good man. I love who I am, and I can do anything I put my mind to.
That is so key. I hope our listeners right now are really taking that in, because I feel like that's such an important part. And you know what? I like what you said earlier. I had asked you, like, what was that transition like from where you were to, that sort of awakening piece and wanting to choose differently. And you had said that it was just something that happened. It just kind of like, you don't really know how, or, you found yourself doing all these Reiki courses and dabbling into spiritual things. And, I feel like that is such a key part, because a lot of the times people think that it has to be this huge, big moment. You know what I mean? Like this massive life shift that has to happen in, hitting you in the face. You know what I mean? But that's not always the case.
No,
No.
I've certainly had those too. Like fast forward to 6 years of being in that business, I went bankrupt for 1.3 million.
Ooh.
During that process, I'd met a woman. We had a couple of children. Both were unplanned, and I found myself sitting on my living room floor, bawling my eyes out after she'd left me because she couldn't do this anymore. She couldn't be with someone who was working ridiculous hours a week, not present for her, not present for the kids, and she left and moved back to Western Australia to get some support from her family. Like initially I was devastated because from my perspective, everything that I'd been doing was for her and for the kids.
Mm.
But from her perspective, all she was seeing is that I wasn't there. I wasn't supportive. We weren't a team. And, I remember a week or two after that moment that I had this awakening of like, holy shit, like in the pursuit of building this business and earning financial freedom and all the rest that people believe they're going to get when they start their first venture, I'd actually lost everything that meant the most to me, but I had to lose it to realize that. I had to lose her. I had to lose the kids. I had to lose my social circles and friends and basically my health and well-being to realize, hang on, there's something out of balance right now. Like you shouldn't have to hustle. You shouldn't have to work 80, 100-hour weeks to be successful. Like, how can we build this life of our dreams while enjoying it along the way? And I think that's where I see a lot of mismatch with a lot of business owners I've worked with in the past, is they believe, well, if I just work hard now, eventually I'll get there and then I can relax. Then I can be there for my kids. Then I can take that holiday. It doesn't work like that.
No. You're right. You're right. It's so true. It really doesn't work like that. And it's not until you kind of get to that spot. I used to work in corporate and you see it a lot. People are working so many hours, but for what? For a company that's happy to drop you at this when the pandemic happens. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And all of your life that you've worked and you've dedicated so many hours to whatever job you're doing. What are those moments that you've missed along the way? I love that you said that. I think that's so important. And also I feel like is a big, you let me know your thoughts on this, but I feel like it's kind of a big thing that people have woken up to over the last couple of years, that, hey, maybe I shouldn't be doing this anymore.
Yeah, I think that's where I do believe, the pandemic, as devastating as it was, and, people lost their lives, people lost their jobs, like there was a lot of really messed up stuff that happened.
Yeah.
I do believe that provided the world the greatest opportunity we've ever seen to live a life fully expressed.
Mm.
A lot of people had the rude awakening that, hang on, like I haven't got control. I'm not in control. My boss has just let me go. Like, I can't leave my house now. This has happened, that's happened. And it's like when everything's taken away from you, it's almost a clean slate to go, okay, well, if I was in control now, what would I do? Now that I can't work at that, what do I do? And I guess, recessions and financial crises have always brought about fantastic and phenomenal innovation. And I do really feel that the pandemic was an invitation to so many others who had been living shitty, unfulfilled lives to go, right, like, what am I here for?
Yeah.
Like, what's my gift on the world? What is it that would make me happy? How can I contribute more to myself and to my family, to my community?
Mm-hmm. 1,000%. Oh my gosh, I couldn't agree with you more. It's so true. And I would love to know, on that note, do you have like one or two tips that you could leave with our listeners when you talk about, that idea or that notion of balance and self-care and balancing all of the areas of our lives? If someone's listening right now and they're still finding themselves in that rut, in that grind, in that go, 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 one or two things that they can do to pause and to reassess.
Yeah, I speak about this a lot in my book, Sex, Drugs, and Radical Self-Expression. And there's two,
Mm-hmm.
looking back over the last, I guess, 18 years of personal development, deep personal development, there's two things that have made a significant impact. The first one is building a deep and intimate relationship with myself and my heart. And what I mean by that is building that connection with my intuition, because I believe that we're all born with intuition, but unfortunately we were never guided or educated around building a relationship with it. We were guided and educated around building a relationship with our thoughts and our intellect and our knowledge. Yet our intuition is this very beautiful whisper that always guides in the right direction. And I feel that the more that I've developed that, the more that allows me to be aware when I'm moving in a direction that's not in alignment with me. And whenever I move in that direction, whenever I go against my heart, it builds resentment, it builds frustration, it builds anger. It just brings a lot of conflict into my life. Whereas when I'm following my intuition, when I'm following that whisper, things always have a way of working out. So spend time to develop your relationship with that, whether that's, sitting by yourself for a few minutes a day, whether that's meditation or yoga, or like just start to cultivate that relationship with yourself. And the second thing that I'd say is taking that and sharing that with the world from a place of vulnerability. And what I mean by that is start allowing yourself to have more vulnerable conversations, right? I know for myself, I allowed myself to be walked over. I allowed my boundaries to be crossed. I allowed myself to not speak my truth for most of my life. And yet vulnerability has such an incredible gift because it allows us to share what's true for us. And the people that are actually there for us and want to be around the truest version of us will be there and support that. And the ones that won't will simply fall away. And I guess I spent my life trying to always fit in or be someone that I wasn't because I was too afraid of being who I was. Yet, if I look back, it's only been through being who I am and sharing that vulnerability that I've actually attracted authentic, inspired relationships, both in business and in life, my partner, even with my kids. So the two things is, spend time to develop a deeper relationship with yourself and express that vulnerably to those around you.
Oh, that is amazing. I love those. And the way you put that, I absolutely love that. The way you talk about tapping back into your intuition, it's so beautiful. And I think, again, society has this perfect way of putting all these rules and conditions around what it means to even access your spirituality or, get in tune with your intuition and all of that. It's like, you have to do this, you have to do this, or you should do this. And it's kind of like, you know what? Maybe you can just sit in silence. You know what I mean? And you can find exactly what you're looking for. Oh, that is wonderful. Wonderful. Okay, I need to ask you about your book. I want to hear all about it. It's called Sex, Drugs, and Radical Self-Expression. We're going to have the link to it in the show notes as well. Can you tell us the inspiration behind the name? And also, what will people learn when they're reading it?
Yeah. When I started writing it, the working title was A Spiritual CEO. I thought I was writing a book around how to bring intuition into growing companies. I had a few successful companies at that point in time, and I put my success through making decisions and leading from a space of that intuition. So I thought I was writing a leadership book, and a few chapters in, I was like, no, this is not a leadership book. This is basically me sharing, I guess, my personal journey from how I found spirituality. And regardless of what your beliefs are, like, I think it's fair to say that there's something else other than us out there that kind of makes things tick. And so it
1,000%.
starts off kind of sharing how I developed that relationship with my intuition and with, the divine energy, I guess you could say. Move to the middle part of the book, which is when I started studying psychology, change work, psychotherapies and stuff like that, and really developed my mindset, and how at that point in time, I believed that there was only the two aspects, that there's the heart or the spirit and there's the mind. But then it was a few years ago that I actually found there's a third aspect, which was embodiment, right? Somatic practices and how we actually store trauma and beliefs in the body as well as in the mind and in and around the energetic heart. And so really it shares a bunch of stories from, where I originally, I guess, got introduced to drugs and my journey through that, not too in depth, but later in life, experimenting and exploring plant-based medicines for therapeutic change, things like DMT, magic mushrooms, and so forth. But really, more than anything, I guess, if I was to wrap it up, it's a permission slip. Like, it was very, very challenging for me to write that book and to share all I shared in there. And there's a lot of stuff that was shared in there that my parents never knew about me, that even my best friend never knew about me. And I felt if I could go online and express all of this vulnerably to the world, energetically, it creates that ripple for others to do the same. If I could come from being, from what I perceive, pretty messed up and screwed up earlier in life to where I am now, living an incredible life with beautiful people around me, yes, I still have challenges, but my ability to overcome those challenges and the way that I approach them is very different. And so the book is a permission slip for people to basically live a life that is connected to their deepest calling and the deepest version of them. It's a permission slip that, regardless of what guilt or shame or hard feelings they've got held in the background, to let it go, to take off that backpack of burden and to live a fully expressed and free life.
That is amazing. That sounds like a really incredible book. I love that you call it a permission slip because I think that's what a lot of people need when they're trying to make a life change to begin with, right? No one else will really understand around you while you're doing whatever you're doing. But if you have one person in your corner telling you that it's okay, take that leap, take that step and do that thing because it's going to be okay. That's amazing. I love that. Okay, Barry, this is my last question for you. It's one I've been asking on my podcast for about 3 years now, and I rarely get the same answer. So I'm very curious to hear what yours is going to be. But how could someone live a happier life every day starting today? One thing that they could do.
Start with small steps and stop guilting yourself.
Mm,
Small hinges swing big doors. So just start with something small and allow it to become more consistent and much bigger.
that's beautiful. I love that. Thank you.
Welcome. Thanks for having
Amazing.
me.
Absolutely. Can you let our listeners know where they can find you so that they can connect with you and learn more about you?
Yeah, best place is my website, barrymagliarditi.com, Magliarditi. On there, you'll find links to the various businesses that I run and operate, my social links, connection page, and so forth as well.
Amazing. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Barry, for your time today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks everyone for listening to the podcast this week. I hope you loved this episode. Be sure to share it with someone you know needs to hear this message and connect with both of us online to let us know that you're listening. I'm so grateful for you and have a beautiful week. Remember that happiness happens when you're least expecting it.